Confident. All right, let's set the scene here. Warm, you're in the gym, you're feeling absolutely great, crushing your workout, and then suddenly click. Serious. Your elbow makes this weird little sound. You pause for a second, maybe roll your shoulder around a bit, and you think, I'm fine. Friendly, I mean, we've all been there, right? You just brush it off because you feel indestructible, suspenseful. But what if that tiny, seemingly harmless little click is actually the sound of an impending disaster? Energetic. Today in this explainer, we're going to figure out the fascinating and honestly super misunderstood world of tendon injuries. Serious. And more importantly, we're going to talk about why trying to just power through them is literally the worst thing you could possibly do. Excited? Okay, let's dive into this because we really need to call out what is perhaps the biggest, most pervasive gym bro lie ever told. Curious, you've probably heard it. Calm, my tendon will heal in 36 hours, whether it likes it or not. Persuasive, people just repeat this like a mantra. Serious. They're trying to literally command their own biology to obey their workout schedule. Strong. But as you'll see in just a minute, telling your connective tissue to hurry up, it's not just useless. It's the exact mindset that guarantees you're going to be in pain for a very, very long time. Curious. So this really brings us to the core mystery of our explainer today. Serious. How exactly does a tiny, almost unnoticeable tweak become this lingering year-long injury? Thoughtful. Just think about the stark contrast for a second. Calm. 1 week, your elbows and shoulders are handling weighted pull-ups perfectly fine. No problem. Serious. Then a month later, you're suddenly in the kitchen struggling to open a jar of pickles. Emotional. It feels like this sudden overnight failure, but actually scratch that. It's not overnight at all. Professional. An incredibly complex microscopic breakdown has been happening right under your skin. Confident. To solve this mystery, we really need to understand the hardware. Energetic. We've got to understand what these biological cables actually are before we can figure out why they snap. Professional. Which brings us to section 1, inside your connective tissues, the cables that make your body move. Calm. So, the crucial point is understanding the difference between the different materials actually holding us together. Informative, you've got ligaments, and those strictly connect bone to bone. Calm, they essentially hold your skeleton together. Informative, then you have fascia, which connects muscle to muscle. Excited, but the absolute star of our show today is the tendon. Professional, tendons have a very specific and highly demanding job. Strong, they connect your muscles directly to your bones. Energetic, and because they connect muscle to bone, tendons act like these high-tension cables that physically make your body move. Curious, think about it. When your muscles contract, all of that raw, explosive force has to travel somewhere, right? Professional, it has to go somewhere to lift a weight, or throw a ball, or even just walk across the living room. Strong, all that force channels directly through your tendons, which then yank on your bones. Serious, so they have to be absurdly strong. Warm, but they aren't just static ropes, they also act like springs. Energetic, when you run or jump, your tendons literally store energy as you land, and then release it on the upward push. Professional, it's an unbelievably efficient system, well, until we break it. Curious, to really grasp how strong they are, we've got to zoom in microscopically and look at how these things are built. Excited, moving on to section 2, the structure of a tendon. Enthusiastic, this is basically Inception, but with ropes. Excited, seriously, the structure of a tendon will blow your mind. Calm, like I said, it's like the movie Inception, but instead of dreams, it's just rope all the way down. Professional, a tendon is made up of these bundles of tissue. Curious, but if you look inside those bundles, you'll find even smaller bundles. Calm, and inside those? Yep, smaller bundles again. Professional, this goes all the way down until you finally hit the microscopic collagen fibers that are doing the actual heavy lifting. Serious, and this brilliantly illustrates exactly why they are so strong, and honestly, why injuries are so devastating. Calm, when a tendon is healthy, those collagen fibers are packed incredibly tight, and they're lined up perfectly parallel to each other. Professional, that precise, organized alignment is the secret sauce for their immense pulling strength. Serious, but when a tendon gets injured, that beautiful organized structure completely falls apart. Emotional, the fibers get scattered, disorganized, and totally tangled up. kind of like a messy ball of yarn. Serious, they completely lose their mechanical advantage. Professional. So now that we know what they look like healthy versus when they're a tangled mess, let's look at the biological cascade that turns those perfect parallel lines into total chaos. Confident. Section 3, how tendons actually break. Serious, the cascade of biological damage. Calm, it all goes down in a very specific sequence. Professional. Step 1 is repetitive loading. Warm, and hey, tendons are built for this. Serious, but when the load gets too heavy or you're doing way too much volume, we hit step 2, which is where microscopic tears start forming in that collagen. Calm. Now normally our bodies are amazing at repairing these micro tears while we rest. Suspenseful, the real disaster hits at step 3. Serious, you apply stress to the tendon again before the repair process is actually complete, which naturally leads us to step 4, the absolute breaking point. Strong, this is where the rate of damage officially exceeds your body's rate of healing. Serious, you're literally digging a hole faster than your body can fill it. Professional. And this brings us to one of the most misunderstood parts of training. Serious. If you think grinding through some grueling 3-hour workout is making your tendons bulletproof, you are in for a serious shock. Confident. Let's get into section 4, the 10-minute loading limit, the surprising point of diminishing returns. Curious. What's really wild here is the single number 10, professional. Studies show that after about 10 minutes of targeted heavy loading, your tendons just stop. Calm. They simply stop getting the biological signal to get any stronger. Serious, that's it. Strong, the window is closed. Serious, after 10 minutes, they completely stop adapting, and they just start accumulating pure damage without giving you a single ounce of benefit. Thoughtful? So just picture this. Serious, you're in the gym doing an endless marathon session of pull-ups. Energetic. In your head, you're free solo climbing Taipei 101, thinking you're building this legendary, indestructible tendon strength with every single rip. Serious, but biology is looking at you saying, hey, you peaked at 10 minutes. Strong, this is the moment we really have to wake up, bro. Serious, you are not Alex Honnold. Professional, all that extra volume isn't making you stronger. Serious, it's just pushing you straight toward a massive disorganized collagen tear. Curious, so what actually happens when we ignore that 10-minute limit and rack up all that damage? Serious, well, it's time for a pretty harsh reality check about recovery. Professional, section 5, the real healing timeline. Calm, biology moves on its own schedule. Serious. Now, if you go to a doctor with a screaming Achilles or a bad elbow, you're going to hear 2 specific terms. Professional, tendinitis means you've got acute inflammation from a recent injury. Calm, your body is rushing blood flow and repair cells to the area. Warm, that inflammation is actually a totally normal, necessary part of the healing process. Serious, but if we stubbornly keep pushing through it, it turns into tendinopathy, and that is a chronic, ongoing condition. Professional, why does it happen? Serious, simply because the initial injury was completely ignored, and the tendon just kept tearing before it could finish healing. Calm. To put that into perspective, let's look at what that healing actually takes. Professional, that initial repair, it takes a few days just to begin. Serious, but full healing, we are looking at a bare minimum of 6 weeks, and that can easily stretch all the way to 6 months. Strong? Remember that 36-hour gym bro myth we talked about at the beginning? Serious, yeah, it's dead. Professional. Biology absolutely does not care that you have a beach vacation coming up in 4 weeks, or that you've got a heavy lifting competition. Serious, biology moves on its own timeline, and if you try to rush it, you are just resetting the clock to 0. Warm, all right, enough of the bad news. Excited, let's get to the good stuff. Curious, how do we actually take those disorganized scrambled fibers and turn them back into strong parallel cables? Professional, section 6, fixing the tangled mess, realigning the fibers. Energetic. Let's move to and see how this builds into a proper science-backed rehab protocol. Calm. First off, you don't actually have to stop all your training, but you absolutely must stop the specific movement that's causing the pain. Confident. Next up, and this is literally the gold standard here, eccentric exercises. Professional, this means lengthening the muscle under load. Calm. Think about the slow, controlled lowering part of a bicep curl. Curious, why is this so crucial? Professional. Because that controlled lengthening actively forces those brand new collagen fibers to lay down in the correct parallel direction while they rebuild. Warm, pair that with some gentle movement, stretching, and massage, and you ensure those healing fibers end up organized instead of scattered all over the place. Serious. Furthermore, if we want to stop this from happening again, we've got to hit the root cause. Professional, look, most tendon injuries happen for one very simple reason. Serious, we skip the progressions. Calm, we get eager and try advanced movements our tendons simply are not ready for, usually with terrible form. Persuasive, if you want to avoid this, you really need to look into resources like the Calisthenics playbook. Professional, it uses visual progressions. Calm, that means it doesn't just blindly tell you what exercise to do. It shows you exactly how to build up the necessary foundational strength your tendons actually need before you level up. Strong, no more skipping steps. Warm, and finally, guys, please be smart about this. Serious? Tendons are incredibly complex little structures. Professional, we really cannot keep ignoring that clicking sound in our elbow the exact same way we ignore our credit card bills. Persuasive, seriously, go see an actual orthopedic doctor. Strong, do not rely on an AI chatbot or some random fitness forum to diagnose your pain. Professional, you need a proper diagnosis and a structured rehab plan that's actually tailored to your specific injury. Thoughtful. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought. Serious. Your tendon is not going to magically heal in 36 hours just because you're highly motivated. Professional. It really comes down to a choice. Persuasive. Will you respect the biological process, put your ego completely aside, and be back to pain-free training in 6 months? Serious. Or will you keep pushing the limits, ignore the warning signs, and find yourself stuck sitting on the couch with a melting ice pack wondering what went wrong? Confident, the science is incredibly clear here, but the choice is entirely yours. Warm, thanks for joining me on this explainer. And remember to train smart.